Hey everyone, Chris here. So I'm going to be taking a look at the Warlock class and the new player's handbook today. And I am not going over invocations because I did that in my last video. So if you haven't seen my last video and you want to see what the invocations are, you should go check that out after watching this one, right? So we are going to look at the Warlock today. In my previous videos, I've been showing you stuff on Google Docs where I've copied stuff over and it has a black background. I have not completed that for the classes. It just didn't have time. So you will be seeing ugly watermarks, but I'm going to be showing you directly out of the player's handbook, out of my PDF. Okay, so we are going to just jump right into it. All I ask is if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. Also, if you would like to support this content, then do so through Patreon. There's a link in my video description for $3 a month. You can watch all these videos early and without the YouTube ads. Okay, so let's get started on the Warlock. And we're going to start with the core Warlock traits. And it's going to look very much like the 2014 Player's Handbook. They were playing around. You can see armor training is light armor. They're playing around with medium armor as armor training in the playtests. They went back on that and ended up just sticking with light armor, which is what they got in 2014. Here's why I think this is relevant. So with light armor, a Warlock is never going to have a good armor class. And, you know, if you're a rogue, you can get away with light armor because you're focusing on your dexterity. So your armor class is going up along with your dexterity. Warlocks are not going to be increasing their dexterity. They're going to need to focus on their charisma. They might be able to start with a decent dexterity, but you're just never going to get a good armor class. Especially if you're going pack to the blade and you're going to be rushing into melee, you do not want to be wearing studded leather armor with your Warlock. So you want to do better than light armor. And you can get mage armor with an invocation. That would give you 3 plus your dexterity. That's still not going to be a very good armor class, and it's not going to scale. So you probably want medium armor, right? And shields, except that's not going to be so easy to get. It used to be you could take the moderately armored feat, and then you would get medium armor and shield proficiency, and that was worth doing. But the new moderately armored feat doesn't give you proficiency with shields. If you want proficiency with shields, you take lightly armored, which gives you light armor proficiency, which we already have. So we would need 2 feats to get medium armor and shield proficiency. So I do think a lot of Warlocks are going to want to dip another class at level 1 just to get medium armor and shields. And you could do Paladin, but then you need to have a 13 strength, which you definitely don't want on your Warlock. You could do Ranger. You probably have the 13 dexterity, so you just need 13 wisdom. Wisdom's a little bit better than strength for a Warlock, so that might be a decent dip. And you'd get the free Hunter's Mark castings, which would be okay. Or Fighter, even. You might even want to dip Fighter or Cleric. So I definitely think Warlocks are going to be seeing a lot of class dips that they didn't see before. Okay? Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as you're used to. We're going to get Eldritch Invocations at level 1, and Eldritch Invocations work very much like they used to, except we get them earlier, and we eventually get more of them. Another thing to note is that your pacts, so Pact of the Blade, Pact of the Tome, and Pact of the Chain, these are now invocations, so you will have to select them as invocations if you want them. On the upside, you don't have to select any of them, or you could select all 3 of them. So we have a lot more flexibility in terms of our pact now. Pact magic is pretty much exactly the same as it was in 2014. The only difference is, and I believe this was an optional class feature in Tasha's, is you can replace a cantrip when you gain a level. So if you want to switch out one of your cantrips, you can. The other thing is you can cast rituals. That's not part of the pact magic feature. Any character who knows a spell can cast it ritually if it has the ritual tag. That includes Warlocks. That said, there's not a lot of ritual spells on the Warlock spell list, which we're going to be going over in a bit. Here's our class chart, and it's mostly going to be very similar to the 2014 version. The spell slots are the same. The slot level is the same. The number of prepared spells is the same. Where you are going to see a difference is in Eldritch Invocations. So we're going to start with 1. That's where you can select your pact or a different invocation if you so choose. But since that wasn't an invocation before, that maybe doesn't count for anything. Well, by level 5, we're going to find that even if you take the pact off, we're still ahead on invocations, and we're basically going to stay one invocation ahead for the rest of the time. So at 20th level, you'll have one more invocation, not counting your pact, compared to a 2014 Warlock. Alright, so I apologize for the watermarking here, but Magical Cunning is a new feature. We saw it in the playtest. It hasn't changed from the playtest. It says that you can perform an esoteric rite for 1 minute. At the end of it, you regain expended pact magic spell slots, but no more than a number equal to half your maximum rounded up. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. That means until 11th level, so from levels 2 through 10, you will get one pact magic slot back, and that's once per long rest. It will technically give your 2024 Warlock more spellcasting than a 2014 Warlock, but not a whole lot. Okay? So at level 3, we'll select our subclass, and the subclasses available in the 2024 Player's Handbook are Archfey, Celestial, Fiend, and Great Old One. We'll be going over all of those. At level 4, we'll get an ability score improvement, and I'm not going to bother going back to this. You get them at the standard levels. So you get them at 8, 12, and 16 as well, and level 19 as well, though at level 19 you can also select an epic boon. At level 9, we'll get Contact Patron. We saw this in the playtest, but it was level 11 in the playtest, so it's been moved back to level 9, and this did not exist on the 2014 Player's Handbook Warlock. It says, in the past, you usually contacted your patron through intermediaries. Now you can communicate directly. You always have the contact other plane spell prepared. With this feature, you can cast a spell without expending a spell slot to contact your patron, and you automatically succeed on the spell's saving throw, which is an intelligence saving throw, so it's a good thing. We automatically succeed because we're not going to be good at intelligence saves. Once you cast the spell with this feature, you can't do so in this way again until you finish a long rest. So this is going to be useful as like a divination. And so it's going to be a fairly good feature. Utility, but a good utility feature. All right, so Mystic Arcanum. So for the 2014 Warlock, Mystic Arcanum are the Warlock's way of getting spells that are higher than 5th level, because Pact Magic never goes beyond 5th level. And essentially at 11th level, you get a 6th level slot, then you get a 7th level slot at 13, an 8th level slot at 15, and a 9th level slot at 17. And you can only use it to cast the one spell you select. So it's not like a regular spell slot where you could upcast a lower level spell with it. You can't do that. You never have more than one spell that you can cast with that slot, that Mystic Arcanum slot. So it is different than a spell slot. The one improvement we get in the 2024 rules, which I believe we saw in Tasha's as well, is whenever you gain a Warlock level, we can change our selection. So if we have a spell that's an 8th level spell at 15th, and when we get to 16th level, we want a different 8th level spell, we could switch it out. At level 19, it says Epic Boon. You gain an Epic Boon feat or another feat of your choice for which you qualify. Boon of Fate is recommended, and this is essentially just an ASI. Because Epic Boon Feat does not require that you be 19th level in Warlock or any class. It just requires 19 character levels. So if we're multi-class 10 different ways, but we get a feat at 19th level, we could select an Epic Boon Feat. So we can basically, at level 19, get an ASI, except Epic Boons are now available, is the only difference. And level 20 is the capstone. When you use your Magical Cunning feature, you regain all your expended Pact Magic slots. And that is essentially the same as the 2014 Player's Handbook. Of course, the Player's Handbook in 2014 didn't have Magical Cunning, but if we spent a minute, we could recover all our pack slots. Now, if we spend a minute, we can recover all our pack slots. So it's essentially the same. So overall, it's similar to the 2014 version. I mean, the biggest change is probably that the packs have moved into invocations. We have a slight difference in the number of invocations we get. We have Magical Cunning, which gives us essentially another spell slot for most of our levels, eventually multiple spell slots, and we get the ability to contact our patron at level 9, which is to contact other plane spell, and otherwise it's largely the same as it was in 2014, and the Warlock has always been a pretty good class, and it's a little bit better now. Now let's talk spells. So the spell list that the Warlock gets. So here we have the first half of cantrips. Blade Ward, Chill Touch, Eldritch Blast, Friends, Mage Hand, Mind Sliver, Minor Illusion, and Poison Spray. Don't worry, I'm not going to read them all out. I'm just reading this first page because I'm going to move past it. And Prestidigitation, Thunderclap, Toll the Dead, and True Strike are the final cantrips we get. Here are the Warlock level 1 spells on your screen, and I'm going to be covering this in general in just a moment, so don't worry about quickly looking at every spell that's on there. These are the level 2 spells. This is the first part of the level 3 spells. Here's the second part of the level 3 spells. The level 4 spells, the level 5 spells. These are the level 6 spells, the level 7 spells, the level 8 spells, and these are the level 9 spells, and now I'm going to tell you the differences from the old Warlock. Okay, so they said they increased the number of spells on the Warlock spell list, and that is technically true compared to the old Warlock. If we're only looking at the spells that are in this new player's handbook, there are 2 additional spells on the entire Warlock spell list. So these are the changes from the Warlock before you use this player's handbook. The cantrips are the same spells. No changes at all. At first level, we add Bane, Detect Magic, Speak with Animals, and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Now, Detect Magic and Speak with Animals, they're essentially replacing invocations, because we had an invocation before that allowed detecting magic. We had an invocation that allowed speaking with animals. So instead, they're just first level spells. They're both ritual spells, so you can cast them ritually without a spell slot. Okay, so really it's only adding Bane and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Then we look at second level. Second level actually has less spells. No spells added at second level, and they took away Shatter. So your one, area of effect option at second level is gone. Third level, no changes. Fourth level, no changes. Fifth level, they added Jalarzi, Storm of Radiance. Sixth level, they added Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron, and they took away Conjure Fey, Flesh to Stone, Mass Suggestion, all gone. So 3 spells removed and added 1. At 7th level, no changes. 8th level, no changes. And 9th level, no changes. All right, so in the end, we add Bane, Detect Magic, Speak with Animals, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Jalarzi's Storm of Radiance, and Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron, and we lose Shatter, Conjure Fey, Flesh to Stone, and Mass Suggestion. I think the Warlock actually lost. Not a huge amount. Like, this isn't devastating to the Warlock or anything. But it's going to be a lot harder at 6th level to pick your spell when Mass Suggestion isn't on there, gotta say. And if you saw one of my previous videos, 7th level Force Cage was always just a must pick. But Force Cage is a lot worse now. So I don't know that it's the obvious pick at 4th level anymore, or 7th level anymore. So yeah, the Warlock does not have a particularly strong spell list. Alright, so let's look at the Archfey. There's our Archfey patron subclass artwork. And here are our Archfey spells. These are added as automatic spells prepared, so you do not need to select them. You get them automatically. So at 3rd level, we're going to get Calm Emotions, Fairy Fire, Misty Step, Phantasmal Force, and Sleep. Pretty good list. 5th level, we get Blink and Plant Growth. Those are good spells. Level 7, Dominate Beast, and Greater Invisibility is okay. 9th level, Dominate Person is okay, and Seeming is okay. Pretty good spell list, I'd say, overall. Mostly winners and a few iffy spells, but I think it's a fairly solid list. Level 3, we got Steps of the Fae. So it gives our patron gives us the ability to move between the boundaries of the planes. You can cast Misty Step without expending a spell slot, number of times equal to your Charisma modifier. You'll gain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Since you are not using a spell slot, it will not interfere with your casting on your action now. In addition, whenever you cast that spell, you can choose one of the following additional effects. Immediately after you teleport, you or one creature you can see within 10 feet of you gains a d10 temporary hit points. That's not that many. And then Taunting Step, creatures within 5 feet of the space you left must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw against your spell DC or have disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than you till the start of your next turn. That could be reasonably good if you're, next to creatures that have deadly attacks and then you Misty Step somewhere where they can't get to you. That could be good. Steps of the Fae is good. because you're getting probably 3 to begin with and eventually 5 free Misty Steps. So that's a good feature. Then at level 6, we have Misty Escape. You can cast Misty Step as a reaction in response to taking damage. In addition, the following effects are now among your Steps of the Fae options. Disappearing Step, you have the invisible condition until the start of your next turn, or until immediately after you make an attack roll, deal damage, or cast a spell. That has changed slightly from the playtest. In the playtest, it was almost the same, except dealing damage was not one of the limitations. And then Dreadful Step, creatures within 5 feet of the space you left or the space you appear in, your choice, must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC or take 2d10 psychic damage, which is okay. Mainly, I like being able to cast Misty Step as a reaction. Is very cool. Again, a pretty solid feature, I think. At level 10, we get Beguiling Defenses. Your patron teaches you how to guard your mind and body. You are immune to the charm condition, which is nice. In addition, immediately after a creature you can see hits you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to reduce the damage you take by half, round down, nice. And you can force the attacker to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. On a failed save, the attacker takes psychic damage equal to the damage you take, also nice. Once you use this reaction, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest unless you expend a Pact Magic spell slot. No action required to restore your use of it. So a change from the playtest here. The old version just said a spell slot. Now they're saying a Pact Magic slot because you could multiclass. And, if you took a dip in Sorcerer, you could then expend a first level spell slot to recover this feature. Now, being level 10, we're talking a Pact slot, which is a 5th level spell that you're giving up to get this again. I don't know if it's worth a 5th level spell. I guess maybe in an emergency, right? But for the most part, I'm not sure this is worth a 5th level spell slot. Maybe if it's you just took a ton of damage, then it could be worth it. Anyway, I think it's a decent feature. So no dead features yet for Archfey. And we finish up with Bewitching Magic. Your patron grants you the ability to weave your magic with teleportation. Immediately after you cast an enchantment or illusion spell using an action and a spell slot, you can cast Misty Step as part of the same action without expending a spell slot. And this is the same as it was in the playtest, and this one could combine with multiclassing. If you multiclass with Sorcerer and then you took an enchantment or illusion spell that was a first level spell, then that could activate your Bewitching Magic. And I think this is a good feature. And Archfey is very good. Very good subclass. There are no dead features. I'd say 2 of them are fantastic, the level 3 and the level 14. The level 6 is pretty good. Level 10 is pretty good. Overall, I gotta say, this is like a 4 out of 5 subclass, as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to look at the Celestial Patron now, and here is the artwork for the Celestial Patron. And we are going to start with the spells, and just like with Archfey, all of these spells that I'm going to show you for these subclasses are all automatically known at the correct Warlock level. So at level 3, we're going to get Aid, which is good, Cure Wounds, which has been improved, Guiding Bolt, which is okay, Lesser Restoration, bonus action now, not bad, Light Cantrip is okay, and Sacred Flame with a Warlock, I don't know, I mean, you got Eldritch Blast, it's all right, I suppose. Then at level 5, Daylight, which is actually now Sunlight, which is much better. Revivify is a good spell. Guardian of Faith is a decent spell. Wall of Fire is a good spell. Greater Restoration, it doesn't come up a lot, but it's very useful when it does. And Summon Celestial, which is actually a reasonably good spell. So, not a bad list. Now, the Celestial Patron came from Xanathar's. It was the one that was printed alongside Hexblade, so nobody looked at it. But it was there, and it wasn't bad, and Healing Light was a feature they had, and it has not changed at all. But for those of you not familiar with it, you gain the ability to channel celestial energy to heal wounds. You have a pool of d6s to fuel this healing. The number of dice in the pool equals 1 plus your Warlock level. As a bonus action, you can heal yourself or one creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself, expending dice from the pool. The maximum number of dice you can expend at once equals your Charisma modifier, minimum of 1 die. I would hope you'd have at least a 12 Wisdom. Roll the dice you expend and restore a number of hit points equal to the roll's total. Your pool regains all expended dice when you finish a long rest. So a decent little backup healing feature that it only uses bonus actions. So, I mean, it's not a bad feature. The level 6 feature also has not changed. Your link to your patron allows you to serve as a conduit for radiant energy. You have resistance to radiant damage. Once per turn, when a spell you cast deals radiant or fire damage, you can add your charisma modifier to that spell's damage against one of the spell's targets. I don't think this is very good. So first, you get resistance to radiant energy. Radiant energy tends to probably be the damage type that player characters take least often. So unless there's major changes to the monster manual that change that, that's not very good. And then when you cast a spell that deals radiant or fire damage, you can add your charisma modifier to that spell's damage against one of the spell's targets. Well, the Warlock spell list doesn't give you hardly any options that do those. So then we're really looking at the subclasses spell list, and we have Wall of Fire. And Wall of Fire is a decent spell, but it's only against one target once per turn. And what else? Sacred Flame. Well, I want to cast Eldritch Blast. I don't want to cast Sacred Flame, even if I can add my charisma modifier to that damage, because I have Agonizing. I mean, you could do Agonizing Blast and this, and then you could add your charisma modifier twice, but you're still only getting one Sacred Flame, right? And if they save, they take no damage. So I still don't think that's very good. So I don't think this is an overly good feature. Personally, a little bit of a dead level for Celestial. Then we have our level 10 feature, Celestial Resilience, and this is the same as the playtest and only slightly different from the old version. You gain temporary hit points whenever you use your Magical Cunning feature or finish a short or long rest. These temporary hit points equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. Additionally, choose up to 5 creatures you can see who gain the points. Those creatures each gain temporary hit points equal to half your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. So this is not quite as good as the Inspiring Leader feat, but it's very similar to the Inspiring Leader feat. The only change from the Xanathar's version is this also works after you use Magical Cunning, which is once per long rest and requires 1 minute. So you will get one more use out of it than you would have before the 2024 Player's Handbook. But for the most part, I mean, it's decent. That's not a bad number of temporary hit points. Like I said, it's not as good as the Inspiring Leader feat, but if you don't have the Inspiring Leader feat, it's a fair number of temporary hit points. So I'd say a reasonably good feature. All right, and then level 14 Searing Vengeance has had a slight change. So when you or an ally within 60 feet of you is about to make a death saving throw, you can unleash Radiant Energy to save the creature. The creature regains hit points equal to half its hit point maximum and can end the prone condition on itself. Each creature of your choice that's within 30 feet of the creature takes radiant damage equal to 2d8 plus your charisma modifier, and each has the blinded condition until the end of the current turn. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. The change here is the old version as well as the playtest version. This just worked on yourself, right? You couldn't use it on somebody else. So now you can use it on somebody else within 60 feet, meaning there's a much better chance you'll get to use it. Though at 14th level, I would imagine a lot of days will go by where nobody drops to the point where they're making death saving throws. But at least you have a decent chance of using it now. I still don't think it's a fantastic feature, but it's okay. It's okay. And I gotta say, Celestial Patron is, as far as I'm concerned, the weakest of the 4 subclasses for Warlock. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. All right, we're now going to look at the Fiend Patron, and here is the artwork for the Fiend Patron. I like this artwork a lot, what's more iconic than a Tiefling Fiend Patron Warlock? I don't know, but anyway, let's get into the features. We shall start with the spells. So at level 3, you get Burning Hands, Command, Scorching Ray, and Suggestion. It's an okay list. Command is good, Suggestion is good, Burning Hands and Scorching Ray I'm not as big on. Level 5, we get Fireball, a great area of effect spell. Stinking Cloud, not so great. Fire Shield is okay. Wall of Fire is decent. Gesh is okay. It's not great. And same thing with Insect Plague. The Fireball is kind of the standout on this list. And when you are level 5, you're going to feel really good hitting things with Fireball twice per short rest. Probably more than the Wizard Evoker. Once we get to the point where we can get Synaptic Static, I'm not sure I want to be casting Fireball if I can cast Synaptic Static instead. But that's not going to be until level 9. So there's probably 4 good levels of play there, or what, 5, 6, 7, 8? Yeah, 4 good levels of play there where Fireball is going to feel really good. Now, let's look at the features. So we have Dark One's Blessing, and it says when you reduce an enemy to 0 hit points, you gain temporary hit points equal to your Charisma modifier plus your Warlock level, minimum 1 temporary hit point. That's what the 2014 feature did. This one does one other thing. You also gain this benefit if someone else reduces an enemy within 10 feet of you to 0 hit points. So if somebody else steals your kill, then you still get the temporary hit points. That's great. So nice improvement there. We saw that in the playtest as well. But yeah, Dark One's Blessing has always been a good feature, but even better now. Then we have Dark One's Own Luck. You can call on your Fiendish Patron to alter fate in your favor. When you make an ability check or a saving throw, most of the time you're going to use this on saving throws, you can use this feature to add a d10 to your roll. You can do so after seeing the roll, but before any of the roll's effects occur. In other words, you make your saving throw, you failed the saving throw. The DM says, well, you failed. This is what happens. And you go, wait a minute, I'm going to add a d10. Then you can use this feature a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier, but you can use it no more than once per roll. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. The old version was once per short or long rest. Being able to do it Charisma modifier times per long rest gives a lot more flexibility, and I think makes this a better feature. And it was already a good feature. I love to make my saving throws. People who watch this channel know that. This is a great way to buff your saving throws. Very strong feature, very nice. All right, at level 10, we're going to get Fiendish Resilience. Choose one damage type, other than Force, whenever you finish a short or long rest. You have resistance to that damage type until you choose a different one with this feature, so you have a floating resistance, and it can be anything, including bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. It just can't be Force damage. The difference from 2014 is if you chose bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing as your resistance, silver weapons could bypass it, and magical ones too. Yeah, magical and silver weapons could both bypass it. Those kind of resistances are gone. You either have a resistance or you don't. So technically, this has been boosted a bit. I mean, choosing resistance to bludgeoning damage is probably a good choice if you're not sure what you're going up against. If you do know what you're going up against, of course, then you can just choose the resistance that you know you're probably going to need. That said, it's just one resistance, so I don't think it's super powerful. I think it's okay. It's an okay feature. And then Hurl Through Hell, so we saw this nerfed to heck in the playtest, and sorry to say, the nerf stuck. So once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack roll, you can try to instantly transport the target through the lower planes. The target must succeed on a Charisma saving throw against your spell DC, or the target disappears and hurtles through a nightmare landscape. The target takes 8d10 psychic damage if it isn't a fiend. If it is a fiend, of course, it doesn't take damage, I guess, because it's having fun, surfing through its home plane. And it has the incapacitated condition until the end of your next turn. When it returns to the space it previously occupied or the nearest unoccupied space. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, unless you spend a pack magic slot to restore your use of it. So one way this has been boosted is you can expand a pack slot to use it again. I don't know if I would, because they've gave the creature a saving throw. In the old version, they didn't get a save. They just went. I think it was more damage too. I'm going to double check that. Yes, it was 10d10 psychic damage. No saving throw, automatically disappeared for a round. So you could do it against legendary creatures on round 1. You beat them on initiative, boom, you're gone. Now we're going to set up a bunch of crap wherever you're going to reappear so that when you reappear, you're screwed. I've done that, and it is so effective, even at level 20. And it's just not going to work anymore because they'll use a legendary resistance, of course. The damage reduction, I don't care that much. 8d10, 10d10. But the saving throw, that hurts. That hurts a lot. This is okay now. It used to be the premier feature, maybe of all Warlocks. Now it's probably below average. That said, the Fiend Warlock at level 3 gets a great feature, and at level 6 gets a great feature. Level 10 gets an okay feature, and level 14 a so-so feature. I think Fiend Warlock is still looking really good, especially at the lower levels. So overall, I'd say 3.5 out of 5. Okay, last subclass, the Great Old One Patron. Here's the artwork. I love this artwork. This is some of my favorite artwork in the book. The Great Old One Patron got fantastic artwork. She looks like she has got some issues. All right, don't date this girl. She's got baggage. Anyway, we're going to take a look at the features. Let's start with the spells. So we get... I hate the watermark on this one so much. Okay, we get Detect Thoughts. Dissonant Whispers is good. Phantasmal Force is good. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is good. Clairvoyance is okay. Hunger of Hadar is okay. Confusion is decent. Summon Apparition is pretty good. Modify Memory is okay. And Telekinesis is good. Overall, I think all of them have had pretty decent spells. And, of course, thematic for the class. All right, and I'm going to have to split this one up. All right, so we have Awakened Mind. You can form a telepathic connection between your mind and the mind of another. By the way, this is the third level feature, of course. As a bonus action, choose one creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself, and you and the chosen creature can communicate telepathically with each other while the two of you are within a number of miles to each other equal to your charisma modifier. To understand each other, you each must mentally use a language the other knows. And the telepathic connection lasts for a number of minutes equal to your Warlock level. It ends early if you use this feature to connect with a different creature. This is the same as it is in the playtest. In the 2014 rules, you only get one-way telepathy. So two-way telepathy, of course, makes it a lot better. That said, telepathy is not great, but this is the ribbon because we get another third-level feature. Psychic Spells. When you cast a Warlock spell that deals damage... and that happens quite often, you can change its damage type to Psychic. In addition, when you cast a Warlock spell that is an enchantment or illusion, you can do so without verbal or somatic components. That's terrific! We just got a bunch of enchantment and illusion spells with our subclass, so our Dissonant Whispers, our Phantasmal Force, our Tasha's Hideous Laughter, all require no somatic or verbal components. And being able to switch any damage type to Psychic is thematic, but also can be useful, depending on the type of damage we're doing and the resistances and immunities of what we're fighting. So, level 3, Great Old One actually does really well, because the telepathy is the ribbon, and then this is kind of the primary feature. Alright, level 6, we're going to get Clairvoyant Combatant. When you form a telepathic bond with a creature using your Awakened Mind... so that's a bonus action to remind you. That was our ribbon from level 3. You can force that creature to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. On a failed save, the creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against you, and you have advantage on attack rolls against that creature for the duration of the bond. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest, unless you expend a packed magic slot, no action required, to restore your use of it. That changed from the playtest. In the playtest, they set a spell slot of level 2 or higher, so you could do some multi-classing to kind of take advantage of that. Not anymore. Now you got to use your packed magic slot, which is going to be at least a 3rd level slot at 6th level. Not cheap. I don't know if I would do that. But once per short or long rest, we can use a bonus action to set up a telepathic connection. They're going to make a saving throw, and if they fail, then they get debuffed and we get buffed, and that's good. So a reasonably good feature, and it turns our ribbon into something actually fairly useful. Then at level 10, we got Eldritch Hex. Your alien patron grants you a powerful curse. You always have the Hex spell prepared. And when you cast Hex and choose an ability, the target also has disadvantage on saving throws of the chosen ability for the duration of the spell. So normally when you cast Hex, what happens is you pick a creature, bonus action, boom, they're hexed. When you attack them with your Eldritch Blast or whatever, your Blade Pact very likely now with the new Warlock, you will do additional d6 damage, which is okay. And then you choose an ability and they have disadvantage on ability checks for that ability, and that's not such a big deal. So the rider really isn't very much for Hex. It's mostly about the d6 damage. But what they've said here is when we choose what ability scorer gets that disadvantage on ability checks, they'll also have disadvantage on saving throws. I want to actually, we're going to jump back to the level 6 feature. So this just got a huge boost, right? Because I can hex the creature, and then I can give it disadvantage on wisdom saving throws, and then I can use my Awakened Mind as a bonus action on the following turn. That doesn't use concentration, so it's not conflicting with Hex, and they're going to have disadvantage on that. Jumping back to Eldritch Hex, there's also spells like Dissonant Whispers that don't use a concentration that we can cause disadvantage on. Furthermore, we're not an island. So we have a party, and most classes in the game cast spells. So you could just ask, the other members of your party, hey, what do you want me to set this guy up for? And somebody says, well, I got a whole monster ready. Great. Wisdom saves. Boom. Disadvantage on all their wisdom saves against that hold monster spell. That's really good, right? And Hex is not a super powerful spell at level 10 anymore. At low levels, it's pretty good to combine with your Eldritch Blast and do a little bit of extra damage. Level 10, I normally wouldn't be concentrating on Hex, but I sure would here. Now I'm considering concentrating on Hex. Now, if I cast it with a pack slot, it's going to last all day, 24 hours. So what I could do is I could, at level 10, I could cast Hex at the beginning of the day, then use my 1 minute feature to recover that pack slot, and then I've got my pack slots again. That's definitely going to alter how I consider which spells to select, because I'd be looking for spells that don't use concentration so I can keep my Hex up and have that floating disadvantage, which would be really nice. And if this was the only feature I got at level 10, I'd say it's not bad. But it's not the only feature I get at level 10. I get another pretty decent feature. Thought Shield. Your thoughts can't be read by telepathy or other means unless you allow it. That's fairly minor. You also have resistance to psychic damage. That's a lot better than radiant damage resistance. I'll take that. And whenever a creature deals psychic damage to you, that creature takes the same amount of damage that you take. So Archfey had a very similar feature at level 10 where, you could reflect the damage back at the enemy. That was once per long rest, or you could expand a pack slot to do it again. This is every single time, but only against psychic damage. Very solid feature. Combined with Eldritch Hex, this is an amazing level for the Great Old One patron. And this is the second time that we've had 2 features instead of 1 for Great Old One. And then we finish up with Create Thrall. And we've seen similar features on other subclasses in the 2024 Player's Handbook. But just to reiterate here, when you cast Summon Aberration, you can modify it so that it doesn't require concentration. If you do so, the spell's duration becomes 1 minute for that casting, and when summoned, the aberration has a number of temporary hit points equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. In addition, the first time each turn the aberration hits a creature under the effect of your Hex, the aberration deals extra psychic damage to the target equal to the bonus damage of that spell. So this is always a decent feature when a subclass gets it, but it is especially good for the Great Old One patron, because there is so much synergy between it and Eldritch Hex, because Eldritch Hex is going to be using up our concentration, and it's going to give us the Hex spell. So now we can cast Summon Aberration without concentration, and it is more effective because of our Hex spell. We are going to see similar synergy with one of the Ranger subclasses as well, but with a Warlock, of course, you have pack slots, which means there's just more casting. Summon Aberration, you could be casting it at 5th level. At 14th level, you have, 3 pack slots? And so you could probably do it 3 times every short rest. That might be every single fight. And the extra temporary hit points are significant. Your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. So you've really beefed up those summons. One disadvantage they have is if enemies focus on them, they can take them down pretty easily. Not so in this case, because you've really buffed it up. So it's doing more damage, it takes more damage, it's not using your concentration, doesn't last very long, but you would just cast it in every single fight. And then you would use your bonus action to apply your Hex, and you're going to be really good. So I gotta say, Fiend looks reasonably good, Archfey looks really good, but the Great Old One is the standout here. This is a 5 out of 5 subclass. One of the definite standouts in this entire book. As for the Warlock in general, I think they've done reasonably well. I mean, the base class actually hasn't changed all that much other than packs being moved to invocations, but that's just a flexibility thing for the most part. But invocations are better, and we have better subclasses than ever. And we don't have to be a Hexblade anymore. We can choose other things. Even if we're doing Pact of the Blade, you just couldn't do that before. Now you absolutely can. So very excited to be playing some Warlock characters, especially Great Old One. Just looks so good and so much fun. So yeah, that's the Warlock. Pretty excited about the Warlock, which is why I wanted to cover it first. In my next video, I'm going to start covering the Sorcerer. In my first video, I'm just going to go over the meta magic, get it out of the way, and then we're going to go into the Sorcerer. So I hope you'll join me for that. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.